church with those things, that's what they expect. And if those things don't hold up and they maybe even get better, at some point they get old. And I told you the singing example, you have good singing. Well, that's great, but that's not the reason to come. The truth or Jesus Christ is what we ought to be talking to people about. And once you understand, and I understand the Lord Jesus Christ, so much else falls into place. All the hot topics we want to talk about and everything, they fall into play. So what was the church intended to be? When it was established there on Pentecost, what did Jesus want it to be? All right, it's a place we come together to worship. He's here. We worship him. That's our number one goal, right?
I'd say lift each other up, encourage one another.
All right, and lift one another up, encourage. Obviously, the church was taught because when they were scattered abroad, what did they do? When everywhere preaching and teaching, yes.
The church continues to be the bride. Bride is what it is. And when a bride and a groom marry, then everything they have should be equal. Okay? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Jesus is the head of the church. He wants to that place perfectly should be. But we are to really obey him, listen to him, follow his advice. He knows how to get us to heaven. We don't know how to get there.
That's right.
And Jesus can take us to heaven, but we have to be intertwined with him.
Right, you can't have Jesus here and us over here on the peripheral, and well, I'll get enough to get me there. It doesn't work that way, and that's what we're talking about here, is being that family and helping one another. Keep in mind, God gave his son on the cross to die for us. You can't explain that love. I can't explain it. I mean, it's unreal, but he did it, and so he can expect a lot out of us because of what he has done. Yes, Chevy.
I've heard a lot of people in my life say that give me Jesus, but not the church.
Right.
You cannot have.
You can't separate.
Jesus will not be separated from his bride.
So we know that they were, as you said, they were taught, they learned, and so in reality, anyone in this building, if we are encountered by someone, we ought to be able to give them the basics of Christianity and Jesus Christ. We ought to be able to do that. Now, I'm not saying get involved in all the other things. Maybe we need some help, but we ought to be able to do that. So let's look at some insights and points of interest. Remember in John 6, we used the restaurant analysis, and the reason we use that is the place of the restaurant, the food they have, the marketing and all that, and the church has kind of been turned in to that. Instead of the inward working, we're looking more to the outward working and things of that nature. Now, it's important in the community. I understand that. Jesus provided what people wanted, and he was giving them food at this time. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong to give people food, but you have to see the people's idea. And they showed up in droves. And typically, when there's food involved, people show up, don't they? I mean, that's a pretty common denominator to draw people in. Now, if you got somebody that's down and out and totally hungry and you want to teach them, you might want to feed them first. I mean, food can be important in issues, but we have to be smart enough to discern what that is. So they were showing up in droves. He developed a brand of loyalty. They were loyal because he was feeding them, which means they weren't listening or they weren't thinking about Jesus Christ and what he meant. Now they wanted to make him a king. So, okay, you give me food, you're taking care of me, and that's man's thinking, isn't it? You do something good for me, I'll elevate you. And so they wanted to make him a king, a special person. And that was not what Christ was all about. So many people thought he was going to have an earthly kingdom, but he did. That was not what he was about at all. But that's what man did. So he pushed them away. Now that seems strange, Jesus Christ teaching, but he pushed them away. Of course, Christ knew everything, sees everything, knows everything. He's everywhere, but he knew that they weren't there for the right reason. So why did Jesus not try to change them, even if they were not there for the right purpose? Why didn't he have some kind of counseling session and try to exchange with them and change their mind? Well, he probably knew their heart already, right? That was one thing. And there's some people that will not listen about Jesus Christ. They want to hear other things, and if you try to teach them, it's useless. You don't just shake the dirt off your feet, move on. Don't cast your pearls before swine. So you and I have to be smart enough to say, okay, that's all I can do for D. I got to move on to somebody else. Yes.
I mean, I know Jesus knew their hearts and stuff, but at the same time, he performed miracles to feed them, and they don't appreciate the miracle of how it was fed, how they,
It's a mindset. I'm getting food instead of saying, where's that coming from? Why is he doing that? It was like, oh, give me some more. I just want the benefits of what I'm having here. Jesus knew what he wanted them or how he wanted them, and he wanted to win them through his teaching and who he was, not about the food. So the crowd was not there to serve, but to be served. I wonder if the church is ever like that today. I wonder if there's people that ever, you just give me or please me or take care of me. That's your job. Yes, Ben.
I think miracles are there for the believers, those who want to believe. I've been to the David Copperfield show, and he did some stuff I have no idea, no earthly clue how in the world he did this. Because to me, it's completely impossible. What he did.
Yeah.
Now I know some, slide man and stuff like that. Some of the stuff he did, really just blows your mind. But if you're going to that, and these people would see Jesus, if they could have faith, same kind of thing. How did he do this? Must be some kind of trick. This blew my mind. The miracle wasn't meant that much. But to a believer, someone who already believed in Jesus, that was there to reaffirm and strengthen their faith.
Absolutely. However, I do believe the miracles triggered some people, don't you?
Yeah.
There are some people with a mindset that they want to learn on anything, not just spiritual thing, but anything. And I think it flows over into this. Good point. So back to the church and being served. I was in a congregation one time, a couple came in, need help, get in a place, rah. Got them in. A few months later, just dropped off a bill to the elders for $6,000. They were behind in their payments, So we said, hey, we'll help you some, but you got to help some. Got them up and going again. 4 or 5 months later, same thing. Now, I use them to say this. The only reason it appeared that they were there was to be helped. And there's people like that, and we need to be aware. I think elders have to really be aware of people that need help and versus those that are just expecting it. John 6:34 says, Lord, give us the bread always. So, we ought to want the bread of Jesus Christ. We ought to want to understand him. And whatever he gives us physically in the blessings that we have, and everyone in here has blessings. Doesn't mean we still don't have problems health-wise or whatever, but we have blessings. And we should always expect that. Yes, Shep.
I like what Jesus did in his earthly ministry. And even today, we're looking for the future. We're still looking for the answers.
Right.
Even though I see people pain, and when I see them mess it up, because I can see what they're doing.
Right.
But then after they continue painting, you say, that's what they're doing. And after a while, you see this magnificent painting, you think, I understand it now. Jesus is doing that to these people. He couldn't give them the whole loaf of bread, the whole
right.
loaf of hay at the time, because they could not comprehend it. They could not understand it. He did feed the people. He did do the miracles. But it was all in the learning process for these people, pulling them to Christ. By the time they had him killed and hung on the cross and he resurrected, Peter, they were ready.
Yep.
Now,
The ones that
understand what he's talking
the ones that wanted to be ready and were involved were ready. And the others, you weren't going to change. And, that's kind of sad to say, well, there's some people we're just not going to impact. But that's truth. I don't know how else to put that. There's nothing we can do. Doesn't mean we give up totally. maybe another time would, it's up to us to discern what that might be. Then they were not there to let Jesus tell them who he was. They wanted to tell him who they wanted him to be. But he says, I am the bread. So how does he say I have come down from heaven? Because he's trying to explain that to them. And as Shelby was saying, Christ has done all this, but it's a new process. He didn't impart to all of us and say, okay, you're now Christians. So all of us operate within that sphere. What he did, he says, you have a choice to be a Christian. I have done it. And if you do this, you can be a child of mine, you can be a family of mine, and you can have a home in heaven if you obey my will. So he's now revealing to them who he is. And here they are. They want him to be a king. They want him to be other stuff. And there's a lesson there for the church. The preacher's good, but you don't put him on a pedestal. The elders do a good job, but you don't put them on a pedestal or an active worker. We're all family. We're members, and we're all parts. Some of us as the church they were not there for Jesus, but they for what he could. Not that you saw signs, but that you ate the loaves there in 6 and 26. So I think we have to keep we often emphasize the Lord's Supper, make sure your mind's right. Make sure you're thinking about Jesus. Well, I suggest to you we think about Jesus all the time and what he's done for us. When Jesus challenged their understanding, they left him. You ever challenge anybody and they left you in a study or just a general conversation? Some people don't want to hear what you have to say. Now, we often talk about love and kindness and meekness, and that's a given. We have to have that. But you encounter some people, I was having a Bible study with a guy years ago, me and the preacher and I, and we got to a certain point about marriage. Now, we didn't know what his marriage situation was, and obviously it didn't fit the description we were giving him, because we had studied a lot to get us even to that point, and it came up, and both of them just stood up and walked us to the door and said, thank you. That happens sometimes. When you get to a certain point of truth, people don't want to hear the truth. This is the truth. You can't go wrong with this as long as you do this in kindness and love. Yes, ma'am. I do too.
That's when you know that you've actually got it.
And they're thinking, I don't fit this, so they get concerned.
And I try to talk to her who thinks that she can see. And sometimes she'll get up and have a hasty exit. I've preached part of your church. My words have his part.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Tom.
My mom and dad didn't do that. I say this is right. I say we do this.
Yeah. Truth divides the marrow and the bone. Truth is a cutting edge, okay? I become a Christian. I believe what Jesus is teaching, but my whole family is something else. Now, how do you feel? Well, you know how you feel. You feel bad. But some people don't have the fortitude to overcome that and say, well, I got to take care of my own soul. I'm sorry that happened. I'm sorry that they didn't get the teaching or didn't accept, but that's truth. That's life. And that's some of the hard part, that we have to deal with in our life.
Don,
Yes.
a few weeks ago, I was in a conversation with someone. They were telling me about another person, and they said, well, they just want a little fire insurance. They want to hell, they just want a little fire. Some people want that fire insurance, but they don't want to do the work. They just want to be that fire, but it don't work that way.
No.
Or not, they might.
Yeah, there's no policy to get you to heaven except full commitment to the Word of God. There is no side part. And that's the reason the church should be teaching. I'm not saying what I'm teaching, but this generality of us all working together to be what Jesus wants us to be. But we can help one another. I think we're commanded to help one another. So ultimately, your choice. But you ought to be able to influence me in my life some way if you're living a Christian life. John 6, 52 through 66 says this. The Jews therefore, 52. The Jews therefore quarreled among themselves, saying, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? And Jesus said to them, most assuredly I say unto you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink of the blood, you have no life in me. Now, if you're not understanding too much about where Jesus is coming from, that's a weird statement. And you're wondering, okay, what's going on here? So, whosoever eats my flesh, for my flesh is food indeed, and my blood is drink indeed. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood abides in me, and I in him. As the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so he who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread which came down from heaven, not as your fathers ate the manna and are dead. He who eats this bread will live forever. So then 59, these things he said in the synagogue, and he taught in Capernaum. Therefore, many of the disciples, when they heard this is a hard saying, who can understand it? When Jesus knew in himself that his disciples complained about it, he said to them, does this offend you? What then if you should see the Son of Man ascend where he was before? It is the Spirit who gives life. It is the flesh profits nothing. The words that I speak to you are the Spirit, and they are life. But there are some of you who do not believe. For Jesus knew from the beginning who they were who did not believe and who were betray him. And he said, therefore I have said to you, and no one can come to me unless he has granted to him by the Father. And from this time, many of the disciples went back and walked with him no more. There's another good example. If Christ cannot convert everyone, what's that say about us? Well, it says that we're not going to convert everyone that we encounter. So they made a decision, and we have to, it's a choice. Jesus has provided everything. It's a choice if you want to partake of it or if you do not. Our job in the middle there, kindly, is to help people understand about that choice that they can make. So they were customers, and we keep talking about church and listen and everything. And yeah, they may sing, they may do some things like that, but they do not engage in the work of the church and evangelism. Folks, if a congregation of the Lord's people does not engage in evangelism, all of us, you know what the church does? It dies. It dies. There's not enough people going to move in. There's not enough children that you have that are going to stay here. It just won't work. It has to be new people. And hopefully that helps you and I to understand the meaning of evangelism and how important it is to the church. And we only can do that working together. That's the only way to do it.
John, I would also say, people sometimes think it's actually sit down and have a Bible study. Typically, just something to say in the car, for example, from the Stanford Church of Christ or whatever. Just something to get it out there, just to show that we care about people. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't even know who does it, to tell you the truth, but I've gotten a card or two from here for different things. I think it's a good opportunity, and I'm not criticizing or anything. I think every time we have an opportunity, could study. Our job, again, the opportunity that they have with us today. Sometimes it's just easy to send somebody something and not say that, but maybe we should. If Jesus wanted the church to have customers, what would he have done? He kept feeding them. He had large group, people following him, and he says, that's what I want. Then he just kept dropping the food to them. Now, how's that translate to the church? Well, if we draw them in with programs, if we draw them in with food, and that's what we teach them, that's what they're going to expect. If we draw them in with truth, we can teach them. At least that's what Jesus wants us to do. Whatever they do with it is up to them. He wants more. than what they wanted to give back. Yes.
I think the whole concept, what you just read there, John chapter 6, we have to wrap our minds around the fact that it's not physical. It's never about physical. It's always about spiritual Christian, okay? Because physical gets hungry, physical gets tired, and physical wears out, okay? And physical dies. The only thing that's going to live is our soul, okay? That's our bodies. You don't have to really what you do with it. Your bodies are finished, done, complete, forever, okay? And that's all we can see is the body. The Bible tells us to be transformed, be conformed. And the word, these people are saying, they're grappling with this, eat your flesh, drink your blood, what do you call it? He's talking about spiritual food that you can be eating. And it's still hard for people to grasp today because they like the physical, because it feels good, and it tastes good, and it looks good.
Yeah.
And that's what church is doing. And wholesale numbers are bringing people in because they got a good band, they got entertainment, they've got good entertainment, they've got good this, or this. And you got preachers that will tell them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
God wants you to be happy, and God wants you to be wealthy, and God wants you to be blessed. That's just not what the Bible teaches at all.
Not at all.
Jesus says, take up your cross and follow. He don't say it's going to be easy, it may get worse.
Yep.
But we got to get away from the physical aspect of it. And when we do that, then we're right on the right track.
And the spiritual, when we get into the spiritual through Christ, then everything means more to us, doesn't it? And I mean life in general. Jesus didn't want the church to be that producer-customer concept. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm taking nothing away from preaching, song leading, teaching. I'm just trying to illustrate people are Christians doing whatever their skill set allows them for that. But Shelby and Kevin have the same obligation when we leave these walls to teach just like we do. It's like, oh, we're elders, you guys go ahead and do that. They set things up. Daniel gets up here and preaches, does a great job. But he's preaching to Christians, isn't he? By and large, 99.9%. And then these Christians are to take what he says to us from Scripture, apply it to our heart, and then go do it. And that's where we drop all, is the doing part. James says to be ye doers, not hearers only. Hearers only are lazy. Hearers only are customers that sit in the seat and then say, well, I don't have any other responsibility. Coming to church to a lot of people means coming and sitting and listening to the producers, and that's all it means to them, giving their money or something like that. So let us see what Jesus expects. In 1 Corinthians 12, Paul introduces the concept of the church as a body and each Christian as a member. Now, I've been saying this over and over, and I'm going to say it again. Paul is illustrating the physical body. And there in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, which let me turn to because I want to make a point or two. 1 Corinthians 12, my Bible says unity and diversity of the body, but it says this, for the body is one and has many members. We talk about the body of Jesus Christ, do we not? We're members of that body. Richmond Church of Christ is meeting today, and Mercer Church of Christ is meeting today. Guess what? They're members too. Many members. But in this setting, many members in one body, but we're all united. Then you drop down to 14. For in fact, the body is not one member, but many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I'm not of the body, is therefore it not of the body. So the point he's making, if I say, I can't do what Shelby does in the church, so I'm not going to do anything. That's basically what it said. So Shelby's the head, I'm the hand. So here's the deal. I decide to do nothing. And here's my illustration. If I tied this arm down to my side for 6 months and left it, and then took off the restraint, what would happen? Be totally useless, wouldn't it not? Dee cut her thumb one time. She was slicing sausage, and she did this number and cut that ligament, and had to have surgery, and they put this in a cast for months and had a copper wire through her thumb, all turned. She really looked weird. And they went and took that cast off, and she couldn't do anything with the arm. Plus, it had all this big old black hair all over. It was gross looking. That's what happened to us as Christians. When we don't do anything, we just swivel up. Just like the arm, just like her arm. And that's a physical example, but that's what Paul is saying. Here's another thing. When we, as a member, choose not to use our skill set, whatever that is, I've said before, everything from preaching to emptying the trash, when we do that, the church is weaker. Because if everybody on this side over here is conforming to what we're talking about today, and this side over here has some discerners, people that are not, this side's going to win because they're doing what Christ wants. And my point is that you're kind of only strong as the weak people. Sometimes we only want to concentrate on those that we think, well, they've got good Bible knowledge. I can talk to them. We need to be talking to the weaker folks. If they understand their part, their skill is, and they hold it out, it makes the church weak. Like the body, church has many parts which are contribute in many different things. I've not been here long enough to know what everybody does. I do know there's a lot of people involved in a lot of different things, and that's good because that's what we're talking about, and that's what Christ want to do the work and do their part. That's a choice, but leadership needs to make sure, teachers need to make sure that if that's your choice, then that's not going to be acceptable to God. And I just don't know how else to say that. Then the body is limited in its abilities. No one should downplay their role. 1 Corinthians 12:21 through 25. If the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, not again to the head, to the feet, I have no need of you. No, much rather, those members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. Are necessary. I may not have as many skills as you have, and vice versa. It doesn't matter as long as you use. Remember the talent example? 2 of the people were okay because they worked. They increased their talents. One guy said, no, I'm going to bury it. The master, he's really hard. Heaven and hell, it's hard to get there. So, he just buried it. And if you do that, then you're going to have the same results from the master, no doubt. Sorry, I make notes so I don't forget. What would the human body look like with the 90-10 rule? What is the 90-10 rule? Yeah, 10 people do the work out of the 100. That's the illustration. So what would my physical body do? I woke up this morning. Everything in my body is working. I know that because I'm standing upright and I'm existing. So when I woke up, the heart was pumping, the kidneys were working, all of that stuff. That's church to me. Not that it, some days it's good, some days it's bad. Every day it's working, and it takes everything. If my heart wasn't working this morning, it's been worked on. But if it wasn't working, I wouldn't be here. I'd be dead probably, or be in surgery. And my body wouldn't be functioning. Sometimes when you have surgery, they put you on a bypass, don't they? That part is so critical that you got to have it even while they're working on this part. So folks, we one another. We got to love one another and build one another up and motivate one another. And you never know what a pat on the back you're saying to somebody means to them.
It's the same way in the battles that I read some books and things like that. During the Civil War, Vietnam, both, the overwhelming vast majority of people did not shoot at the enemy. They find from the very bottom up to the very top of the wall, people were just pretended to shoot. Same way with Vietnam, people would just shoot into the trees at the trees because they couldn't do it. They looked like a soldier, they prayed like a soldier, but they wasn't performing the actions of a soldier. And it's the same for a lot of Christians. A lot of people like to put on the uniform, put on the bumper sticker and things like that. But when it comes to actually getting in the trenches and getting involved, they don't.
Yep. You think anybody, I don't know, in the Church of Christ, I'm sure you've been in different positions. Maybe you had doctors or lawyers or people with lots of money. I don't know. But in the denomination world, I've actually been told, I've not experienced it, about people that place the membership in a congregation because of what it's going to mean to them, either politically or financially, because of the connections. So people do some weird things. Here, what's the difference in the word membership in the world versus the Bible? What's membership mean in the world? Show up. Yeah, you can become a member and have a membership in something and come and sit and be the customer and listen. Membership in the body means that Acts 2:47 says God adds us to the church. Then he goes on to explain how we begin with the milk, how we eventually go to the meat, and we mature. So we are members, but we are, James says, be active, be doing the word of God.
I think membership too, when we think membership, we think it's something that we join, something we pay our dues to, some club we join.
Yeah.
We don't join the church.
No.
God calls us, God has elected us, God puts us in the church and adds us to the church, He writes our name in the Lamb's Book of Life. Or they're elected, we're not members.
Yeah. To the church big C, we don't. The most we do is like ourselves coming here. We come and we join this congregation in worship, but our membership is placed by God. Yes.
And what I will say here, a lot of people disagree, but that's why I'm against, if I come to a church, I don't agree with placing my membership as a Stanford member church. Placing my membership at the Stanford Church of Christ. I'm a member of the Lord's Church. He had me. And if I attend worship here, this is where I'm going to make worship. But I am totally against saying I'm going to place my membership here in this church. I just don't agree with that.
Okay. All I have to say to that is this. That term has gotten used for identification because the elders here are responsible for you. Okay. Feeding you and helping you, and they need to know who that is. Now, when I went to Central, because we had members and people in and out, their theory was, if you here, you're one of us. And so I started talking to them when I became elder and said, should not we have more concern and control of who we know the people are? That we're responsible. We walk up to somebody and say, hey, I notice you haven't been coming. Well, I'm not a member here. I've seen that happen. So I take your point. I understand it. I'm just saying, I think you have to also let them know that you want to worship here. Yeah.
I like to worship here, but I don't think I need to make it official and say I'm going to be a member at the Stanford. I think it's the terminology maybe, but I don't.
Mike?
One of the groups that are out there that people are members of various clubs, it's kind of referred to as a meet, drink, eat, and repeat.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Any other comments? Yes.
I would like to put a different definition to customer.
Okay.
We have to know who our customer is before, it's just like starting a business. When you start a business, you have a business plan to attract your customers in.
Right.
And we have to have that mentality. We have to know who is our customer. Sometimes it's so, I'm going to use another word, pig on people who are members of a denomination because they already believe in Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
What they don't believe is going to be soul saving. In knowing our customer, if that denomination person is closed
to our conversation. He is not a customer of ours. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
He is not a customer. To have a customer, you have to have someone who is interested in you. And, it's maybe what we need to be doing is going into the highways and byways and so looking at people who have no knowledge of Jesus, who can become our customer.
Okay. I totally understand what you're saying. I think sometime, though, a caveat to that is we have friends that are members of the denominational world, and we think, well, they already know what they know. They already believe what they believe. So I'll just leave them alone. They're not a good customer, okay? But think about it this way. There's a lot of denominational folks that know quite a bit about the Bible. There's some don't know anything. They're illiterate. I just wonder sometimes if those that do know, if we could tag on with what they already know and teach them. I don't think, what I want to say is we don't totally write them off. Maybe they're not the best customer at the time, you know?
Our example of those people that we know, that are members who already have a knowledge of Jesus. And
Right.
a really good knowledge of the Bible.
Right.
And we start talking to them a little bit, rather than jumping into,
Right.
say, baptism.
Right.
Whatever, maybe we need to back off and talk about some of the things that we agree on to start with.
Yeah.
And, you know, us set the example, not argue with them, because I think we have, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Sometimes they want to argue with us, or we want to argue with them, and the discussion of the Bible becomes an argument, not a discussion. So what we need to do is understand what our customer is looking for.
Yes.
You know, not argue, but talk and listen and agree with what we agree.
Yep.
And if it starts to become one of those things, one of the things we can say to them, I really appreciate you and how much you know about the Bible. Teach me what I need to know about you.
Okay. Let me close with Ephesians 4:11 through 16, which says this. And he gave some of the to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers, till we all come into unity of faith and knowledge of the Son of God. Why did he give some each thing? What's verse 12 say?
Because some people are better for one thing than something else. But if this person does this part, this part, you come together in unity.
Okay. And verse 12 says he did that for the equipping of the saints. That's the reason we all have different skill sets. If all of us could only, I'm just talking about public worship, lead singing and do nothing else, that'd be kind of crazy, wouldn't it? And so he did all of that, starting the church to equip the saints that they get where they need to be and are doing the work of God. Any closing comments? I'm going to stop here.
I was going to just say one thing, this is not new. The Providence Church of Christ, 1905, the Mount Vernon Signal says this. Several brethren and sisters attend church regularly, Providence each Lord's Day, but not as many as should or could attend if they so desire. The Church of Christ of Providence has a membership of between 300 and 400, yet only 15 to 20 members are attending the regular Lord's Day service. That's 1905, that's the elders put that in the newspaper. 15 or 20 out of 300 or 400 members. So you talk about the membership there a while ago.
Yes.
Are those people converted? No.
No.
No. Those that aren't attending are not converted. Because if they were converted, they would understand. I've got to be transformed. I can't stay like that. Yes.
I'm not questioning anybody being baptized, but in the country congregations that I grew up in, we go to gospel meetings and have young people, 14, 15, 16 years old, and, everything could be going along. One step out And I often wondered, moved by emotion sometime, not only in baptism, but doing the work of God and doing totally for the wrong reason. We make a big to-do about something, and people follow that kind of thing. They wanted to make Jesus the king because he was giving them food. Good comments. Thank you.